When a championship coach transforms into a clipboard-wielding flamethrower, what do you get? Drama, mayhem, and a lot of side-eye. Regarding the All-Star votes, Cheryl Reeve just went all out on all of the coaches and the Indiana Fever team. She didn't come to play nice, to put it mildly. Hold on tight if you thought WNBA politics were uninteresting. Reeves has a bone to pick, anger, and receipts. This is the most wonderfully petty outburst you have ever witnessed. Come on. The All-Star selection had recently done. This is unlike anything I've ever seen. Man, Kevin Clark is a threat. Reeves was practically dismissed from the team by her. My squad is that. Your son doesn't appeal to me. You requested it, sure, Reeves. You requested it. Caitlin Clark's team will now be coached by Sandy Bundello. Additionally, Kier's team member will be coached by Cheryl Reeve. This is crazy. And you know, Cheryl Reeves, I understand. As of right now, your record is the best in the WNBA. As many plays as you can is what you want. Even if Cheryl Reeve had a point, there would still be a swarm of people waiting to say, no thanks, we're good. Because even if she had a point, there's something about the vintage WNBA spirit that makes it seem like someone brought a VHS tape to a war of streaming. It feels like a rotary phone in the age of smartphones. Hey, dude. Tell me, bro, you all just watched Caitlin Clark sabotage Cheryl Reeves on national television. You all saw Free Smoke, I know that. Smoke freely. Free smoke, hey. Smoke freely. Free smoke, hey. Smoke freely. Free smoke, hey. Smoke freely. Caitlin Clark wants to be the center of attention, bro. Hey man, Caitlin Clark wants all the smoke. She just destroyed Cheryl Reeve on national TV, bro. That escaped my notice. She is suddenly blustering about all-star voting as if she had just learned that democracy is flawed. Cheryl, welcome to Earth. The thing is this. It's difficult to believe what someone from the league's dusty cabinet of power says, especially when it sounds more like a disgruntled Yelp review from a coach who just watched her team lose to a team that suddenly matters to the world in terms of play, class, and fan base than it does like advocacy. As a result, Cheryl Reeves publicly expressed her displeasure with the coach's selection of the All-Star reserves as well as that of her players. The weird part is that she will be coaching the team of Caitlin Clark. With her coming out and saying what she said, I'm not sure how that will work. Who knows? Yes, we are discussing them. The Fever from Indiana. 3 All-Stars on the same squad. The same squad that sashayed past the Commissioner's Cup as if they were trying out for Madison Square Garden's main stage. Cheryl's emotional thermostat is now abruptly stuck on the rage tweet setting. Between Caitlin Clark and Fisa Collier, the WNBA All-Star Draft was entertaining. All-Star games have always been based on popularity. And you know what? Fans of Caitlin are affluent. For the Reeve administration, the unsettling reality is that Caitlin Clark's popularity isn't a coincidence. It's a change, a motion, a wave. You must accept it even if you don't like it. Because it's exhausting to act as though this is about basketball purity when it's actually about relevancy. The WNBA gained popularity instead of becoming shallow overnight. Reeve. Therefore, we don't need to worry about anything, including the fact that Caitlin, is being tutored by Cheryl Reeve. I wasn't very worried. The fact that she would have to coach Caitlin's squad with the Indiana University. Audience there, being aware of the history of the Olympic squad and other things. This is the most hilarious outcome imaginable. When you put her back with, say, Team Kier, you put her essentially on a road team, and with all the fervor, the fans will be all in for, say, Team Caitlin. And some people simply aren't prepared for the change. This is where the merit-o argument goes wrong. Rather than being a glamorous, crowd-pleasing mid-season respite, it presumes that All-Star Weekend is some holy proving ground. We wouldn't even have a vote if the All-Star Game was really about who was the best. We would give it to a group of icy, glum statisticians in a room without windows. However, that isn't enjoyable. The brand isn't that. Vibes is the brand. When visitors do come through the door, you don't get to spread the welcome mat and then whine. The All-Star Game is not a peak on moral basketball excellence, rather, it is a celebration. When the light is finally shining, this entire conversation feels like shouting at clouds. Media coverage is at an all-time high, ticket sales are surging, and the league is expanding. Instead, let's focus on a coach who becomes upset when her players fail to make the list that fans who wear Crocs to games vote on. It's a mistake. It's not a good use of breath, and it's out of touch. We don't have any coaches for the All-Star Game in Indiana, they've already been decided. And many individuals had questioned me about my belief that this would occur. Furthermore, I had no idea. Additionally, I didn't anticipate that happening, but it has. Yahoo Sports reports that the head coaches for the WNBA All-Star Games are confirmed. The Clark team will be led by Minnesota Lynx coach Cheryl Reeves, while the Callio squad will be led by New York Libby coach Sandy Borrello. Now, the selection of these two coaches was based on their superiority. The bus is now being driven by the fans, not the gatekeepers who can't seem to understand hashtags, not the coaches, and not the traditionalists. The WNBA became their league as soon as it welcomed a new generation of supporters. Furthermore, they are not seeking defensive rotation lectures. They desire drama, moments, stars. And it's okay if that means the All-Star team doesn't look like a defensive-minded dream team but rather like the lineup from a music festival. We need to get over our infatuation with the composition of All-Star rosters. Interest is what shapes them. And isn't that, in reality, what All-Stars is about? Who shows up and for whom? The game is meant to satisfy fans who want to see Caitlin Clark make logo threes while sporting bling sneakers. The Oscars of hoops aren't it? The summer blockbuster is here. Additionally, no one purchases popcorn to view a spreadsheet. So enough of the egotistical outbursts about how much more respect you deserve. This isn't how it works. Labor. There is no respect. In the marketplace of attention, it is earned. It seems amusing. Furthermore, she exchanged her coach, her instructor. She was therefore originally intended to perform for Cheryl Reeve. You are all unaware of Cheryl Reeve's identity. She was the coach of the USA team, and she basically said a lot of negative things about Caitlin Clark on social media after she had a negative review of her in Christine Brennan's book. She then deleted all the tweets saying that Chris had never said that, and that the tweets had never existed in the first place. In other words, she basically said that Christian Brandon was a... Caitlin Clark is currently an Amazon Prime member. A flawlessly balanced voting record is not something that the fans owe anyone. They owe the league their time, money, and clicks, and they're giving it to them in record quantities. Just not in the way that some had hoped. The most outrageous aspect is that this occurs annually. Every league's all-star selection elicits the same chorus of complaints about being passed over, robbed, and travestied. Now it's just tradition. The WNBA is now being scrutinized, which is the only difference. Furthermore, not everyone was prepared for scrutiny. Because operating in a bubble is one thing, but being evaluated by a worldwide audience that doesn't care who was in charge in 2008 is quite another. The relevance was requested by the WNBA. And now, in all its erratic, polarizing, and sometimes disorderly splendor, it is here. It's not tidy. Although it isn't always equitable, it is effective. The All-Star Game is a major factor in the league's current popularity. Therefore, perhaps simply enjoy the spectacle rather than bringing it up in a lecture about balance, respect, and statistics. Let the fans enjoy themselves. Let the mayhem fall. Because if this league has earned anything, it's a chance to enjoy the chaos. As if she had just learned that her favorite soap opera had been canceled, Cheryl Reeves is now brashly leaving the All-Star Committee. There is more to the WNBA than just basketball. No longer. Side-eyes, passive-aggressive post-game interviews, and three-point daggers thrown with the precision of high school gossip are all part of the full-on circus. It's utterly draining, yet incredibly entertaining at the same time. The twist that keeps getting lost in translation, though, is this. A grueling playoff showdown is not what All-Star Weekend is. It's not defensive plans and film room breakdowns. It's not about who had the best defensive rating over the previous 30 days or who boxed out the hardest. All-Star Weekend is for the fans, not the fans. This is the WNBA season's halftime show. Selfies, glitter, stunts, and if someone feels very edgy, a dunk or two are all part of it. And as soon as reality settles in, all of a sudden, a person having a tantrum at a birthday party because their cake only had one candle is analogous to the outcry over who was elected. Fans are not sophisticated analytics, a fact that Cheryl Reeve and those in her sour echo chamber don't seem to understand. Stat sheets are not used when they cast their votes. They cast their votes based on hype, loyalty, and emotion. It would be fantastic if the All-Star Game were really about performance. Simply enter the top 10 peers, use an Excel sort function, and then roll the ball out. We need to discuss something right now, guys. We need to discuss things. The funniest All-Star picks ever were made by Caitlin Clark. She simply chose her pals. She chose her pals. People like to call them ops, so she made sure she didn't pick any. She ensured her crew was free of ops. She chose a player if she had previously played with someone, such as Sonia Citron. Any nobody, Gabby Williams? No one tweeted anything critical about but that's not the case. It has never been like that. The democratic chaos of sports is all-star games. Do you believe that the NBA's voting procedure was ever impartial? Once, Zaza Pachulia came very close. And yet, a huge segment of the WNBA community is acting as though the league's honor code was broken because a select few players with sizable fan bases were selected. As though that weren't the whole purpose. The ballots state, fan vote. So you don't get to complain about popularity contests. The design is that. The game is that. Everyone claims to desire that popcorn and lights show. But when their favorite is passed over, it turns into a scandal. At this point, the Caitlin Clark effect is undeniable, genuine, and, to be honest, keeping the lights on. Her admirers did not simply appear. They seized power. Like it was a political campaign, they snatched the all-star vote, crammed the venues, and purchased the jerseys. That isn't systemic cheating. The system is that. It feels like someone arguing with a touchscreen to mention being the coach of the USA squad, from which Caitlin Clark was so infamously excluded, as you watch her become agitated with a list of names read off after halftime. Reed wasn't on the official committee, of course, but some people could think she had some influence over how everything turned out. In any case, it was a lot of fun to pick on the players. Additionally, Caitlin Clark ended up with every member of the Fever on her team. The WNBA is enjoying a moment with Aaliyah Boston, Clark, and Kelsey Mitchell as a trio in Indianapolis. Additionally, some people are so resentful that they would prefer to see it stagnate rather than applaud the players for advancing it. This goes beyond sour grapes. There is an entire vineyard. It's vintage wine made from fermented grape juice and grape jelly, and she knows it deep down in her heart. However, acknowledging so would entail acknowledging that the game had outgrown her previous blueprint. That triumph isn't enough. These days, charisma, prominence, and relevancy are important. Furthermore, shouting into the all-star blank won't make your brand more competitive. And really, the Fever deserved all of that attention. They became the focal point of WNBA discourse, whether on purpose or by accident. Cheryl, on the other hand, started shouting from the stands as the irate side character. It doesn't look good. It is calling 2007 and requesting the return of its playbook. Therefore, even if she is technically correct on a few points, nobody is paying attention since nobody wants to hear the loser explain why the winner isn't that great. Analysis is not that. That's cheap ego. Disguise. And the All-Star game will resume after the dust is settled. The supporters will applaud. The Fever will take a break. And Cheryl Reeve will continue to be there, attempting to rewind an indifferent clock. This league's drama is comparable to a Tel Nala wearing sneakers. It gets better every week. It starts as a missed call and ends with an unfollow on Instagram. Cheryl Reeve, the head coach of the Minnesota Lynx, was meant to coach Caitlin Clark. Sandy Brondello, the head coach of the New York Liberty, was meant to train Fisa Collier. They switched coaches. The bullet missed Cheryl Reeve. I am so grateful that I do not have to train Kane Clark. Man, I can't handle that, man. I'd have to swallow a lot of pride. I am unable to accomplish it. She most likely called in the fee. Fee, please speak with Caitlin. I am unable to coach her. I'm not capable of that. I'm not capable of that. The publication of this book is imminent. If the book is out and I'm coaching Caitlin Clark, do you know what they'll be saying? God, oh God, please pay charge. And nothing screams, I'm completely fine, like exploding in public over a pointless popularity contest. So it's peak vintage Reeve. Unless it does. The WNBA's. At last in the spotlight. Cheryl arrives with a megaphone, yelling about respect and balance, rather than leaning into it. It seems as though a group of 22-year-olds with Instagram deals are about to take over the league. You know what? It has already. It's also effective. The merchandise is selling out, the ratings are rising, and the craze has evolved from a meme to a movement. Let's imagine, however, that it is still 2014 and that the world should give senior coaches a slap on the back for simply wearing a pantsuit. Logic isn't even relevant here. Energy is the key, because it wasn't by chance that all-star roster was filled. Buzz, admirers, and genuine moments filled it. There's a reason that went viral. It is impossible to coach your way out of hype. It is impossible to game plan against momentum. While everyone else is live streaming Uno to millions of people, Cheryl is attempting to play chess. Additionally, they just reverse the draw 4 and send it back each time she tries to checkmate the new guard. "Hey, Caitlin, are there any player trades you like to make?" they asked Caitlin Clark. "No, I'm kinda set with my team, but I would like to trade coaches," they said. "I enjoy it. I have no idea what has made Caitlin Clark the way she is. You're embracing your role as the villain. I adore it. You've been on some I don't give a F lately, Caitlin Clark. I'm not sure what's gotten into you. I adore it. Let's face it, we wouldn't be listening to a word if her team had 3 All-Stars. Confetti, a parade, and perhaps even a LinkedIn post about cultural triumphs would all be present. However, as soon as her crew is recognized, we find ourselves in an urgent ethical meeting. Please. The PR problem of attempting to be polite while fuming over someone else's attention is the only emergency. When the votes don't go your way, it's always amazing how easily merit and teamwork can be manipulated. Only when it departs from the same stale power structures will the system be deemed broken. Heaven forbid the focus doesn't fit heritage egos, yet the league is expanding and finally gaining national attention. Cheryl is not engaged in combat for equity. She simply doesn't like being unimportant, and everyone knows it in their hearts. This kind of outrage has an own flavor. The personality of a player who is unable to decide whether to adjust or have a fit while seeing the game change in real time. And the first tantrum. Because nothing hurts more than understanding that the room moved without you when your legacy is based on being the brightest person there. Cheryl is trapped in a snowfall of her own expectations, and the fever is really getting worse. Players and rosters are chosen by the team captains. The coach swap, however, was the most intriguing part since Clark traded Sandy Brondello, the coach of the New York Liberty, for Keir, who was or would be Cheryl Reeve's team coach. Reeve is, of course, Keir's Minnesota Lynx head coach. Thus that makes sense. There's a strange smell in the air when someone complains about media hype but somehow manages to give the media more hype by going off in public. However, the drama will come from Reeve's previous criticism on social media regarding the amount of attention Clark received in comparison to the rest of the. It's similar to witnessing someone douse a grease fire with water and then pretend to be shocked as the flames reach the ceiling. Fairness doesn't bother Cheryl. She is upset because her system, her rules, and her players used to be the center of attention. The light has changed, and she doesn't like how bright it is now. Let's just call it that. A classic example of all-star jealousy. Nothing highlights the WNBA's inner turmoil goblin. Like seeing your team receive what while another receives 3 gleaming all-star selections? Bravo for your effort. All of a sudden, basketball is not involved. Whatever that means this week, it's about algorithms, fairness, and the integrity of the game. Because it's a systemic problem when her players aren't chosen. However, when her team triumphs, the mechanism functions flawlessly. Easy to use. The worst part was that she had to watch her team lose a game that truly mattered to them against the Indiana Fever. Real stakes, a trophy, and the Commissioner's Cup. She didn't simply lose, either. It wasn't a coincidence beep or 3 mailings. More heartbreaking grief. No, this was a complete show of power. The salt then crystallized into a full-fledged Himalayan mountain there. What hurt was not the all-star voting. The scoreboard is it. There are names. They are present. No amount of complaining and sobbing will solve the problem. Similarly, you showed no concern for Caitlin Clark's fan following or anything else related to it. Don't let anyone care about your offense. Do you understand what I mean? That you are Caitlin Clark's coach. Why you had to make it a huge thing and declare, "Oh well, this team below is to have more," is beyond me. And what are you talking about? And it's disappointing. You've already prevented her from competing in the Olympics. You're gonna whine now because she has more teammates than you have on the floor. It's embarrassing. It was more than simply an emotional setback. An exorcism was shown on television. She is currently acting like a person who has discovered that her neighbor's child has been accepted to Harvard, while hers is still performing TikTok dances in the driveway. It's petty. Tastes good.